Welcome, joyful creators and Call the Midwife friends. Today is Funday Monday, part 9 of the Blocks of Love baby blanket. And today we are going to create the final granny square for row 2, which is the dragonfly. Then we're going to sew all of our granny squares together, and then we will join row 2 to row 1. Now, I don't know why my lighting is messing up, but when I remove my lotion bottle, everything gets extremely bright and completely out of focus, and you can't really see it. But when I bring it back, you can see the border of the granny squares, but you cannot see the dragonflies. So here we go. I don't know why the lighting is acting crazy today, but oh well, we're going to go with the flow. So you should have everything that you need, because we have gotten into this blanket quite some, we've gotten into it. And so if you will get all of your items together, we are going to start creating our dragonfly square. And I am going to put the written directions up on the screen. Now, should you prefer to follow along and remake this square by using the tutorial, it will be listed in the description box below. So all you have to do is quickly just scroll over there, click on that link, and it'll take you straight to the tutorial. And the only other thing I have before we get started is just to remember the importance of hydrating and moisturizing our hands, which are our best tools. So if you will, go ahead and complete your dragon square granny square, your dragonfly granny square. I'm so excited. And then we will come back together. And in this tutorial, I will show you again how to whip stitch these squares together. We'll do it kind of rather quickly since there is a tutorial, and I will link that tutorial in the description box below as well. But then I'm also going to show you the same method, using that whip stitch method, to join the rows together. And then this part of the tutorial will be used throughout the rest of the blanket, just to save on time and editing, so I can make sure that you get your tutorials on time. All right, so go ahead and pause the video or do what you need to do to get ready. And then again, you can come back and turn the tutorial on to follow the written instructions, or you can just go to the link and go over to the tutorial. All right, and I will meet back up with you when we have our dragonfly square made. Welcome back. Here is our completed granny square, and I have it kind of sitting to the side because I am learning that with, I guess, the overcast of the day, that's what's helping to create the crazy lighting when it is directly under the camera. But if I slightly slide it over, you can see it. All right, if you're ready, let's clear off our craft table and we'll come back and we'll work on the tutorial of whip stitching our granny squares together. Okay, so the two panels are granny squares that I am going to use to show you how to whip stitch for this tutorial and going forward is going to be one of our heart squares and our classic squares. You will need a piece of yarn about 15 inches long for sewing the two ends together. So let's go ahead and get this on our darning needle. All right. And then you want to make sure that your front sides are always facing out. And then we're going to take them corner to corner and put them together. And then you want to make sure that they're completely lined up. And the easiest way to do that is find that chain 2 space on each one and make sure they're lined up there. Now for whip stitching mine together, I like to start, you've got your chain 2 space right here. I like to start with these 2 double crochet stitches over here. I am going to bring the camera down just a little bit so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. Adjust the lighting there. All right. And that ring light will stop bouncing, and I'm just going to make sure that our focus is perfect. So give me just a minute. And that looks really good right there. Okay, so we have our 2 chain 2 spaces. They're lined up. So we're going to come to these 2 double crochets right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go under both the front and back loop of the heart square because I have it on bottom. I have the classic on top. And we're going to go through the front and back loop of that double crochet on the classic. And then you're going to pull it through. You want to leave enough of a tail that you can have something for weaving in. Now you're going to come back up under just the, if you can see, you've got these V's forming, and you've got what's called a front loop and a back loop, okay? Now, if I were crocheting, this would be my front loop, this would be my back loop because it's the furthest away from me, front, back. So in this direction, we're going to come up under the back loop of the heart granny square and go under the front loop of the classic. And we're going to pull that together, holding on to our tail for weaving in to make sure that everything is nice and secure. And then we're going to repeat that with the next one. We're going to come up under that back loop there and come up on the heart square and come up underneath the front loop of the classic and just pull it through. And we're just going to keep repeating that, making sure everything stays lined up stitch for stitch, going under the back loop on the heart square. And the front loop of the classic. And we're just going to keep doing that all the way up the side. And this is how we're going to whip stitch these squares together. And that will give it a seamless joining, and it is sturdy and strong enough to keep it together. Now I have been whip stitching pieces together like this for years, whether it is a blanket a wearable, and they do last wash after wash. So it is a very sturdy stitch. And again, I am just working my way up the side of this granny square, or these two granny squares, going through the back loop of the heart square and through the front loop of the classic. And they're just lined up so nicely that I'm able to quickly move through those stitches, and then I just kind of pull it through and give it a nice little soft tug at the end, just to make sure that it's nice and tight, but not too tight that it pulls out the shape or the design of my squares. And we're getting very, very close to the other end. And again, when your squares are perfectly evened and lined up, you can see how quickly you can move right through those stitches. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing on this end that I did on the other end. I'm going to go past the chain 2 space and work in those 2 double crochets after the chain 2 space. After I finish those stitches, then I will simply fasten off. And then all I'll have to do is weave my ends in, and these 2 panels will be sewn together. And we're almost there. We're at our chain 2 space now. And so when I finish up here, I will show you what that seam looks like. And you've already seen it. You've already done 1 row of stitching these together, which is why I didn't stop and show you after we got going a ways, because we had already, done this before. All right, so now we're at that very last double crochet that we're going to stop at. So I'm going to go now up under both the front and back loop of the heart, under both the front and back loop of the classic. This is after I've done just the back and front loop already, and just like I did at the beginning, I'm going to do it under both of them and then go up underneath that. And then I like to kind of give mine a little knot there. It won't be felt or seen, but if I turn these over, you can see how beautiful that's sewed together. And there goes my lighting being funny again. I apologize for that. See if my ring light will help a little bit. But you can see how beautiful that comes together, and you really cannot tell where you've stitched these 2 squares together. So now all you have to do is weave in your little end tails. And when you have that done, then just simply go and take your classic and your butterfly panel granny square, which is next, and sew those together, and so forth until you have all 5 granny squares sewn together. And when you do, we'll come back and I'll show you the same method for sewing row 1 and row 2 together. So I will meet back up with you when you have all of your 5 granny squares sewn together. Okay, welcome back. We have our second row or panel, as we're going to call it, complete. And here is our first one. So now we are going to work on sewing these panels together. And the way we're going to do that, just like we did before, we want to make sure that one, they're lined up panel to panel, but two, you want to make sure that the front side of your granny squares are completely facing up. All right, so when you go to put them together, the wrong sides will be facing each other. And then we're going to do just like we did when we were doing the actual granny squares. We're going to line them up, those chain twos in the corner, find that on each one. We're going to start with the 2 double crochets to the right of the chain two, and then we're literally going to whip stitch these the same way that we whip stitched our granny squares. Now, I have a piece of yarn. I honestly don't know how long it is. I measured it out twice the length of my panel, and that's how long I cut my piece for sewing. It is probably more than I need, but as always, you want more than less because you would hate to have to create a knot to join for extra yarn. All right, so I've got my fingers in the chain two space in the corner spaces, and I'm going to come right here past it on those 2 double crochets there and go into the farthest one, and I'm going to pull up. And again, you want to leave enough of a tail for weaving in, and I went under both the front and back loops of both panels. And to get started, I'm going to come under the back loop of the panel that's here, and I'm going to come under the front loop of the panel that is closest to me. And then just pull that all the way through. And remember, you want to kind of pull slowly because when you have a piece of yarn that big, it's real easy for it to get tangled. And then we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to come under that back loop of the one farthest away from us. And then we're going to come under the front loop of the one closest to us. And we are literally going to just do this all the way down our 2 panels until we have our panels sewn together. And I'm just going to work a little bit with you. I know you've seen how this works up when sewing the granny squares together, but we'll work just a little bit together. And then we'll take a look at how it is working for our panels. And this is where the fun and the excitement is going to come together, because now we're actually seeing the blanket come to life and take formation as a blanket versus granny squares and panels. All right, there we go. Couldn't get in that back loop. Sticking to my fingers. And again, when you have them lined up, it's easy to go straight across through the back loop of the one furthest from you and the front loop of the one closest to you. And once you get going, your speed will pick up a little bit. Plus your yarn will start getting a little bit shorter and you won't have as much to pull through. And we'll just do a couple more here. Again, just to give a little bit of an idea and demonstration, which again, you should have an idea. You've sewn enough of the granny square squares together to see it. And I'm almost halfway through this first one. And again, as much as I love the midwife patterns with the classic and the butterfly and the dragonfly, I absolutely love these puffed hearts. And I think they are just going to bring so much character to this blanket. And bring the name of the blanket to its potential, being blocks of love wrapped around a special little itty bitty. Okay, we are almost done with this first square, and I'm going to go ahead and stop and show you. But you can see where the border from this one, you can see where it is lined up with the border from this one. Now I'm going to separate them a little bit so you can see that opening gap of separation. But look at this. Look at where it's already connected together. I mean, it's just beautiful. You cannot tell that seam, and it just seems to flow. And then of course, when it comes back together and there's no gaps, I mean, just look how beautiful that's going to be. And we'll take another look at it when we get to the end and we have the two panels sewn together. So go ahead, pause the video, and finish sewing your two panels together. And I hope that as you do that, that you are experiencing just as much joy as I am in watching this blanket finally take shape and looking more like a blanket. All right, we'll come back when we finish sewing our panels together. Welcome back, friends, and I don't know about you, but my premonition was correct that once I really saw this coming together as a blanket, that, oh my gosh, how beautiful it is. And I am just loving this. Oh my gosh. All right, well, next week we will come back and we will start working on row 3 of our Blocks in Love baby blanket. Now, of course, you have everything that you need that you could go ahead and start working ahead of time if you want. And if you do, and if you get to a point that you want to have the, pattern for the border, then just let me know and I can work with you and get that to you before it comes out. But oh my gosh, I am so in love. All right, well, this has been Funday Monday, part 9 of the Blocks in Love baby blanket. And until next time, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, make your own joyful creations, and I will see you again soon. Bye, everyone.